Good to go.
All right. Oh, and there is Christopher too. Great. All right, it is 4 o'clock. We are going to start our meeting. I am, what? Yeah. So Christopher, I see you. Hello. Can you hear me? I'm using the audio from the room and not from my computer. Can you hear okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ooh, shoot, but we cannot hear you.
Oh,
Can you turn, is there a, hang on while we troubleshoot that for a second, okay?
okay.
At least I can see you this time, so you can wave when you wanna get my attention. Okay. Okay, we're getting some tech support, so hang on just a sec while we get this figured out. David and Renee, are you still recording or should we end the recording? You want to end the recording? Great. All right, so everyone just hang tight while we wait for our 5th committee member to join. And I think we have some members of the public here today, so welcome. We'll stop and do public comment a couple times throughout the agenda, but we also have several things to get through, so I'll thank you for your patience as we figure this out. Anybody else need a copy of the agenda?
Ms. Needham? Yeah, I'll take one. You did see that. There are my shorts.
Hey, Christopher, can you give us a mic check?
Testing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yes. Oh, perfect. All right.
Okay.
Today.
So, Christopher, I can see you, but the rest of the room cannot.
Okay.
You know, we can all hear you.
Okay.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order again, even though it's still been recording, and I'll start with introductions of the committee members. And Christopher, why don't you start first?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Christopher Facundo, public member of the Helena Parking Advisory Board and also the vice chair.
Seth Brandenberger, I'm the Business Improvement District representative.
I'm Joan Taylor, and I represent the residential park.
I'm Sandy Scholl, business representative.
So that's our committee. Let's do some staff while these two have things out.
Sure. Chris Cooey, I'm the Deputy Director of Transportation for the city.
And let's go this way.
I'm Guy Hader, I'm a representative of business down the Great Northern Town Center.
Cam Rigg, I'm just kind of here for the core collective businesses kind of in the New York building.
Okay. You said
adjacent to the parking garage.
Yeah. Cam was your name?
Yeah.
David Knopke, Transportation Systems Director.
Keep them here.
For you.
Yeah, we're working now.
And I'm Alicia Riley, I'm the Executive Director of the Business Improvement District.
All right, thank you, everyone. We do not have minutes yet, so we're gonna skip that piece of the agenda. And just a little bit of housekeeping. We have about an hour and a half here scheduled for us today, so I'm gonna keep us. Oh, now you can see Chris. Great. That's great.
More than that we can see them.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep us on task here today so that we can get through our full agenda. The meat of today, or what I imagine will be the big section, is to talk about the residential parking districts. But we're gonna start with some updates from city staff first. So let's turn over to city staff now. David or Chris?
Sure, I'll take it.
All right.
So we got a couple things on the software. So the first one being just a timeline for the app. So it's a passport app that you can use to pay for parking mobily. And so the first 15 minutes free sessions should be all in now. It should be working. We haven't heard any complaints that nobody's getting it through the app. So it should all be ready to go. We've also verified that, so I know Seth, I think last time you were saying that 15 cents even for the free sessions was charging on the apps.
Yeah.
That was true, for, I think up until like September was the last instance that they saw it.
Oh, okay.
So they have assured us that that is fixed, because we did have them run a couple of plates for a history, and it was popping up. It was infrequent, but it was happening. And so they have assured us that that is fixed now. So even especially now with just the 15-minute free sessions, you should not be charged that 15-cent transaction.
Okay.
If you do find that you have been charged one, please let us know right away. It should be fixed completely. And then map updates. I'm not sure where we are with maps as far as the new. So I know we're working with the new permitting and enforcement software company. And we're in sort of that process of we're identifying some of those standalone meters that will convert to either 2 hour or, you know, if it's right next to a pay to park area, it might just be pay to park, if it makes more sense. So we're doing that evaluation of which meters will get changed. And so once we figure that out, we'll go in and create a new, I call it the cartoony map. If that makes sense. So once we line out some of those new areas of where those things might change, we'll bring that here. We'll bring you guys the map, let you look at it, we'll take it to the commission, make sure they sign off on making some of those changes. And then be able to get a new, completely revised map out that'll show everywhere that's pay to park, everywhere that's permit, all that kind of stuff. So we have an up-to-date map out there.
Yeah, the intent is to get rid of the meters. And then that way it's either permit parking, like Chris said, pay to park, or some 2 hour free or something.
So is 2 hour free gonna be like our regular green signs, white and green signs?
It'll be the green, yeah, the green ones. So there's the majority of the meters that we looked at, they'll probably be converted to that 2 hour free. Just because they're a pretty good distance away from an existing kiosk. We don't want to put any more kiosks in right now. So if it's not within a reasonable distance of the kiosk, it'll just become 2 hour probably.
Will they be on cruise behind God's love there? You gonna pull those out or what are you gonna do?
So cruise we have set aside because that was the discussion with the, those will just be basically put on hold. Until we have the discussion of employee parking, because that was one of the options for employee parking on cruise. And instead of converting multiple times. Depending on what's decided.
Can you clarify that employee parking, you mean it's another permit zone?
Permit zone, again, we haven't had that discussion with this committee, or we haven't had that discussion with the commission. It was just an idea of an area to be brought up for consideration of some type of employee parking. What that looks like, we haven't got there with this committee. See what your recommendations are for that area versus what we can.
Other questions about these two items for Chris and David? So I'm hearing, Chris, I have a question for you. This is Julia speaking. So the transportation staff needs to do an assessment of how many meters, and then we'll put together a map of how many would go to 2 hour versus hourly parking, paid hourly parking. So those two options, and then there's a third option of what might happen on cruise.
Correct.
Correct, okay. And what's a timeline for you to look at all those things?
So I think that we would hope, unless you have that, is that what that is?
So
Okay. Oh,
this
nice
is
map.
not an up-to-date map. I apologize. This is a little old because as you see on 6 where there is the blue dots, that's not meter
Oh,
parking
I'm gonna
anymore.
pause. Can you make this so that Chris can see it online?
So you know, we can see him now.
I don't see it right now.
He's working on it, just a sec.
Oh, okay.
Mouse disappeared.
There we go.
So
Excellent, thank
the
you.
blue dots indicate primarily right now where there is just the smart meters. And so those would be the areas that we would be looking at minus Cruise. Because as you see, Cruise still has the reddish brown lines. Those are meter parking as well, but for this map, it was considered street parking versus smart meter. We will have an up-to-date map, but for the sake of this discussion, most of these areas that have the blue dots have some type of meter parking. And so, like Chris was saying, there's some up there on Placer, just below Park Street there. The nearest kiosk is down there, as you see the triangle by PD. So more than likely, that would be one of those candidates that would turn into something like 2-hour free, because it doesn't make sense to try to have somebody to go down all the way to the kiosk if they don't have the app. But say the ones between Fuller and Last Chance are on Lawrence, you know, those are in close proximity to a kiosk, so those would probably just go to a park in some respect. But again, we'll bring a map that has what the conversions, what the proposed is, and then we can have a discussion with this committee.
So is that something we could do at the December meeting? Okay, so let's add that to our December agenda to review this map. In context of the meters being switched. Is there a possibility, does this map also show the current free 15 minutes and free 2-hour parking spots?
So the free 15 minutes is everywhere.
I know, but there's like 2 per block, but they're not.
No,
No, excuse me. The unregulated, the green and white signs that are
Yeah.
15-minute free, those ones.
So no, I don't think they were on that map. But
They're on the date.
yeah, we'll incorporate those into that conversation. So I don't think that any of those current 2-hour spots are gonna be anything other than 2-hour. But for the sake of maybe simplification, the 15-minute spots, one of the ideas is that they might just be converted still to pay to park, since you get 15 minutes free anyway with everywhere. You know, that might clear some of those up, because a lot of people, I think, pull in there, and since they know they don't have to necessarily pay, they pull in that 15-minute spot, and they might be there more like 30, because they know that a PCO probably won't get around to them quite that quick. So
I'm gonna pause you there because this is actually our agenda item A, because we want to circle back on the
Okay.
15 minutes. So I heard you say, yes, we can possibly figure out where the locations of the current
Yeah.
green and white signs are. What do you call those? What's your terminology for those signs?
free parking signs, I would
Signs
imagine. Yeah, it's. I don't know if there's an official term, but that would be our free parking.
Because there's also 1-hour spots.
There's a couple of them, yeah.
I have found them. They're very. Okay. Any other questions from agenda item A for transportation? Okay, let's go to the PSA creation. Any update on that?
so I know when we were working with Callie on that, a few things came up, you know, this fall with events and some other things, so it kind of got pushed. So we'll re-engage with the chamber to finish up those videos and get them posted. I don't have an estimated time for that, since we'd be working with the chamber and trying to work with their schedule.
Plus, we don't have. This all has to be at some point approved by the commission. Correct, Garris?
Videos?
No, the changes.
Well, so I think the PSA, as far as the videos and stuff go, is really more of just an awareness idea, so it'll be about the pay to park, how to use the kiosk, just some updated material and stuff like that. There may be some things that we'll have to wait until commission approval on some of these changes for sure. But most of anything that we're gonna put out now is just gonna be updated material for things that are either not changing or are already.
Okay, so the old kiosk videos that are out there don't have a lot of the informational stickers that we put on from, you know, like press the green button to start and stuff like that, so. Also, a lot of the retired or older staff are seen in those videos, and we want to freshen them up so that not only current policies and current information on the kiosks are what people will see, but also put the faces of the parking staff that are currently they will see at the window or out and about, so that they can recognize that parking staff is a person that they can ask questions to.
Any other questions? Chris, do you have any questions? Just wait if you. Christopher, no. Okay. Great. All right, then let's move on to our regular items, which is really what we've still been talking about. So a follow-up from your presentation last month about this 15-minute free in the app. And so committee members had wanted to see some budget numbers on what that means, and
Yeah.
you have them.
So I did, I don't know if you guys got the copy of the presentation you gave the commission. Let me see what I can make sure you get a copy of it before we leave today. But in doing the math on those things, so I did it, I kind of broke it apart. What does the first hour free cost us now in the places that we do have it? And so if we were to get rid of that first hour free concept, how much revenue could we essentially expect to gain from that? And that number was about $30,000. So if we were just to get rid of first hour free and do nothing else, parking would see an increase in revenue in about $30,000 a year. And then on the other side, I did the analysis to look at what would 15 minutes cost us, what would 30 minutes cost us, what would an hour cost us for free parking everywhere, since that's the concept we wanted to go to. And so it boils down to it's about $50,000 a year for every 15 minutes that we would give. So if we did, doing the 15 minutes that we have currently in place is about a $50,000 loss to parking. And then you tack on the $30,000 gain on the other side by getting rid of first hour free in those places. So it's about a $20,000 net loss the way things are. And again, that's assuming that everybody puts their plate information in and uses the 15 minutes. So if we were to go to 30 minutes, we'd be looking at $100,000 loss on the one side, a $30,000 gain on the other, for a net of 70. Go on down one.
This is Sandy. Were you able to figure out, one of the questions we had was, how many of the people in those hour free lots were staying longer, or could you tell if people were just popping in and out at 15 minutes? There's a good.
So that was the hard part,
Yeah.
is that the way that the transactions get recorded in the system is it basically just tells you how long they were there,
Okay.
assuming they put their plate information in. So that's another piece of the education where a lot of people just see the first hour free sign and they think I'm just good for the hour, and they wouldn't put their plate in to actually register that hour. So there was a little bit of an element there to say, okay, this is what the real numbers are. We know that that's probably a little bit more for those people that just don't bother putting the plate in but are still gone within the hour. So it's.
Do you have kind of a hunch of how long people are sitting there?
Yeah. So most of the hour free transactions that occurred, they were pretty well under an hour. There wasn't a whole lot of them that were like right at the cusp of an hour. There was a lot of them that the average time was like maybe 18 minutes or, 23 minutes. But they were all on the lower end of that hour versus closer to the full hour.
Could you tell where the three different lots was library one that's popping in and out, or are they more up to the hour versus?
No, they were all pretty steady, yeah. Between all of the lots that had the first hour free, their average times were all pretty well in line and again on that lower side of the hour. For the people that did put the plate
Sure.
in, so.
Okay, this is Seth. Just to clarify. The free hour was in specific lots. But the 15 minutes free that is now is everywhere.
Correct.
And you get that 15 minutes free at, even if you pay for 3 hours, you get 15 minutes of free.
Correct.
If you register.
If we have to register. You're gonna
It's
get
not a
ticket.
15-minute grace period, 'cause
Right.
that's different.
Correct.
You're gonna get a ticket if you don't enter your plate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so, so if I go and I know I want to stay 2 hours, I punch in 2 hours, is it gonna charge me $1.75, or is it gonna charge me 2 hours and I pay for 2 hours and I get 2 hours and 15 minutes?
So it'll depend on how much you put in, right? So I don't think the way that the kiosks work is that you tell it how much time you want and it tells you how much to pay. I think you just keep putting money in and it tells you how much time you've earned as you put the money in. On the app, I think you can choose the amount of time itself. But so if you go to the kiosk, you put your plate in, it should register your first 15 minutes. And so that first quarter, that you start putting in should start at 30 minutes and then go to 45 and then to an hour. And then I think it's $1 per hour after that.
And we have the dollar per hour now, right? On the kiosks.
Do you, and I want to say for sure, but I think we had them reprogrammed so that you could buy time in half-hour increments.
That's nice.
Rather than just an hour. So
That's,
that's
a good
I think that's
customer
what we
service.
wanted. So when we had the reprogramming done to put in the first 15 minutes free, I think we also asked for 30-minute intervals instead of an hour.
That's a good compromise.
I've been thinking about this a lot in the last 2 months that you've done this, and I think there's a couple things. Well, let me think about this. The 15 minutes free when you trying to think about where motivates people, how to park and when, and where we want people to park and where we want them to park long term versus short term. So and looking back at the public comment, there's a lot of public comment about wanting 15 minutes to be able to run in and out of stores. And so we have those probably on average 2 15-minute spots per block where you can park there, you don't have to do anything, and then you get 15 minutes first come, first serve. So then there's the 15 minutes free on the app, assuming that you register. So it's really just kind of a discount on your parking. Because it's not, you still have to go through the barrier of registering, which we were talking about that as kind of a barrier for a lot of people. That takes a little bit of time for if you are just doing a 15-minute errand. And then we have the 2 hour and 1 hour spots that are also free that you don't have to do any registration for.
Right.
They kind of vary in location and area. So I'm thinking about what makes sense for the public and what makes sense for parking, that the paid parking, it doesn't really make sense to have that 15-minute, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to have that 15-minute free in the paid spots, because if you're taking the time to register, you're probably going to be there longer, or you already know how it works, or you want to just park in that spot. It's not helpful for quick errands. So I'm wondering what it would look like to get rid of all free parking through the app, that if it's a paid parking spot, it's a paid parking spot, $1 an hour. And then transitioning maybe some of these meter spots to 15-minute or 1 hour or 2 hours. So we have a variety of types of parking downtown, and we can say there are 30 15-minute free spots downtown that are first come, first serve, 30 1 hour spots, or whatever those numbers that look look like, I think that would help, for messaging and ease of use and turnover, that we know you go to that spot for 15 minutes, you know, in front of retail spots, or, you know, coffee shops or post office, example. So, that involves you changing your app again, so I know that we would need to go through the process to make a recommendation on that, but could we think
Yeah.
about that as we think about the meter changes?
Can I make, this is Sandy, can I make a point now?
Yeah,
So I think free everywhere, 15 minutes is a huge deal. And I hear people say, I circle because I'm waiting for the 1 hour parking here and there. 30 is not enough spot. I think when I mean, I'm someone who avoids parking. And like when I went down to the bakery, I pushed the green button. That's the hardest part, is you're gonna have to tell people you're gonna have to register. You have to be noted that you're in the game. And that part's a little. But I go there and I press it and it says, first 15 minutes free. I go, oh, okay. And I hit yes. And if I just wanna run in the bakery and back, I don't have to do anything else. I've just
just put
read
your
it.
license plate in.
I've had to put my license plate in. You have to do something anyway, and I run in, but what it means is every time someone punches one of those kiosks, in their mind, they're like, I got first 15 minutes free. Not where am I gonna find the 31 hour parking down there? And I would say if it was my choice, I would leave the free parking signs for 1 hour, 2 hour, that people can just run in and grab. They don't have to punch in the license plate, so that's like 100% free, no license plate. And that's not gonna confuse people. They're gonna pop in there, and if they're gonna stay longer than 15 minutes and a PCO comes by, then they know they got nabbed. But so you have the choice. I come downtown, I got free, I got 15 minutes free, and I can stay as long as I want at $1 an hour. And the 30-minute increments even gives you more value in your mind. So I like free everywhere, because that's what they're gonna say is, oh, there's free parking downtown. And it could be in their minds that it's, yeah, I think it's a good.
I like to keep it as simple as possible, really. You know, I don't really know where these free places are at a 2 hour, because I just don't, it doesn't make a big difference to me. I walk downtown a lot, so I don't pay any parking. But I'm kind of like Sandy. The first time I got the 15-minute free, I thought, those guys listen to us, and we have 15-minute free all over town. I thought it was great. So, you know, I don't know how to make it simple. While I appreciate what Julie's saying, it seems to me that it really complicates the whole parking downtown.
I have a real different opinion, probably.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. But here's the thing. It seems to me that the parking budget is already in the hole. It doesn't seem to be. That's what's that's the case.
That's
So 15 minutes free, we're already headed into the hole. We're going further off of where we need to be. But the other issue is, there's another issue that we haven't addressed that we're gonna have to work on, and that's employee parking. And I have a letter here that you probably all received from Rachel Krug, the ones Imagine Jewelry down here. But anyway, I'll put this into the record. But I think if we're gonna make any progress on moving the giving the employees downtown any kind of a break, we have to be very wary of where we're offering reduction. Now, it seems to me if we got rid of the free parking, except in specific spots, like I know where there's a 15-minute free park in front of my building, right there in front of Dubeck and Benny's there's 15 minutes, and then there's actually 2 hours above that that's free. So there's like 4 parking spaces there that I know of.
How many businesses are there?
Well, I've got 6 in my building, and Benny's, and then Margie's Vintage. So yeah, there's a
In the hair salon.
yeah, there's hair salons. There's 2 hair salons. There's people coming and going all the time, and those parking spaces are pretty much always full. But you know, just to suggest, if we got rid of all the free parking except where it's signed, that might give us a little leverage for employee parking at a more reduced rate back out of the commerce area, which would also have a dual effect of pulling people, saving the prime parking spots for customers downtown, and pulling, and benefit is the employees get reduced rate pulled back.
This is Sandy. I think what you told us is that most of the people are parking 20 minutes and less already. So but you're saying, but you did the budget of the 50,000 lost versus on a complete hour of lost income, right?
Well, it's 50,000 for every 15 minutes that we would give.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we would be back worse than we were if we leave it. I mean, we did. And I think people will say 15 minutes and they won't think anything about it, and they'll add another hour or half hour. And I think there'll be people that do that more than we realize. And the fact that if I say to myself, like, okay, I get down there for 15 minutes and I go, but it's a nice day, I'm aiming for like the 15-minute free parking. I've missed it because there's not very many where I'm going to be. Keep in mind the people that are doing the free parking, I would say probably more than half of them. What did Julia say? I found the hour parking. It took me a while to find it. So that means that our employees are going to be in there and ourselves, but not customers. And if we don't have customers, we don't need employees. Because stores won't make it.
We'll be in there for an hour and then they'll be ticketed and won't be
Yeah.
the next time.
But you're taking that spot away from a customer. And the whole purpose of parking is for customers and customers' ease and making things. And so I think we can do both. I think we can find good solutions for giving discounts to employees. And I would bet you people will be saying, oh my God, there's free parking downtown. And that's what they're gonna, what do people say? I don't want to. And if you say the first 15 minutes are free, psychologically, I think they're gonna make that shift and still spend, and I think they'll pay more money in the meters. I think you'll see more revenue from those meters. Because now I can park anywhere for 15 minutes versus the 3 lots I could have parked for free.
This is Joan. I'm wondering why that parking is 2 hour in front of those buildings and 15 minutes, why they weren't.
Well,
I mean,
I
and
mean,
are
you
there
can
other
explain
places?
Well, no,
like-
so I was gonna say, Seth might know an answer, but I don't know why
So
they were
on that
left as
really
2 hour
short block.
free as opposed to going in with the pay to park scenario
Right,
when that came in. I wasn't here at the time, so I don't know what the
right.
decision making.
And how many other places are there like that around
There-
town that should be on the kiosk?
there's a few.
There's a
And I
few.
can tell you that I lobbied very hard 20 years ago to get meters put behind the Union Market. And they all got sawed off when the kiosk came along.
So why aren't they?
But
Oh,
the
they're not even
issue
trying to
was
do
to keep turnover.
Uh-huh.
And I think the 2 hour was part of those negotiations also, if I remember correctly.
It was the fact that an hour, we went on the 300 block for a long time. Oh, we only want an hour. No, that's not enough. Then we have the 2 hours. No, that's too much. And probably just we left some 2 hours up just to placate some people. And maybe you take away the 2 hour free parking and only make those 15-minute hours. But
I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
us, and I made the mistake of getting us a
Yeah.
little bit in
Sure, yeah.
brainstorming mode as a
Sorry.
group. So for the sake of time, we're gonna move on. I am thinking for a future agenda, it might be helpful for us to have a conversation about the goals of parking downtown and the priorities and the various types of users. So we've got employees we've been talking about customers to retail stores, property owners. We haven't really mentioned tourists yet. So there's a variety of there's residents, we have residents. So I'd like to, I don't quite know how to word that, but maybe review parking users and parking priorities and have kind of a bigger picture discussion since there's a lot of history on some of these decisions. What do we want? How do we balance these choices? Okay, That, Christopher, did you have any comments on this agenda item, the follow-up from October? No, shaking your head?
No, I don't.
Note here, and then we're gonna move on. Oh, we kind of talked about this a bit too. Proposal to transition all coordinators to 2-hour free, so that's gonna be, we'll talk about that in December. Is that correct? Or do you
Yeah,
have
so
more
we'll
to say on
bring,
that?
we'll bring an updated map that has where everything currently is. And then maybe a version of that that has our recommendation of what we'd like to go to. And we'll have you guys review that, offer up any suggestions and comments on our recommendation of what to change things to. We're kind of in all of those boats that we talked about. You know, we want it to be simple, you know, we want it to be convenient. But we also want it to be logistically sound for our enforcement side, right? So when you sprinkle in a couple of 15-minute non-paid spots, a couple of 2 hours in between a stretch of paid parking, logistically, it makes it a little bit rough to keep those in line. So we'll bring that to the next one to look at.
I thought you guys were gonna just drive 70 miles an hour downtown.
Yeah, I thought
with your little
120.
meter car. And then, they're just gonna fly out the side of the car as you go by, right?
Oh, if only.
Can I just say one more thing? Sure. I'm new to this and this probably, you have your reasons for this and what I'm gonna say does make sense, but I don't get the 2-hour parking free. I mean, if you're taking the meters off or you used to get some income and putting it 2-hour free, is it because who uses those spots or?
No.
I mean, why don't you put a kiosk on all of that?
So the thought process behind going from the individual meter to just the 2-hour free was, one, that's a lot of the comment that we hear, we need more 2-hour free. The other side is that those meters don't collect a lot. So we've looked at the revenue that they bring in over time. And those individual meters just don't make a whole lot of revenue to begin with. So it was really kind of a negligible number that we would lose in the low thousands of dollars in a year by getting rid of all of them. And then why wouldn't we put kiosks there instead? Well, because the kiosks are about $30,000 a piece to buy new ones.
So
And
it does
so,
make sense.
yeah, we're trying
They're not
to,
using them anyway.
Yeah.
so if we're trying to, if it's near a place that a kiosk is already convenient, we could make those more pay to park. But if it's down the street around the corner, make it again inconvenient.
Makes
And
sense.
those are just coin meters. They don't
Right,
accept
yeah.
a credit card.
Those are just the little bubble ones, you know, that
Yeah.
are all.
That's.
Right, yeah.
Are there smarter meters
They
too?
do
They are smart meters too. Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
two kind
Oh,
of
I
meters in
didn't know.
town.
Yeah, so we have the kiosks, which are like the
Yeah, I get
pillar
that, yeah.
versions. But then we also have the old school looking ones that are kind of like a bubblegum machine,
Yeah.
right? They're technically smart meters as well.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can
okay.
use a
So it's just
credit
that,
card app.
yeah.
You just can't use the passport app.
Right.
You
You
actually
can't,
have.
you can't do the app on those ones. You have to physically either pay with money or
You have to
Got
plug
it.
the meter.
Is there another city that wants to buy those as a revenue stream?
I would assume not.
Alright, sorry, I
Might be
did.
able to sell them as antiques.
Okay, so we'll talk about this more in December. With your proposal that we can all look at it in detail, and maybe see that in advance of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna repeat something Seth said. With that employee parking. Having a more affordable employee parking area. Could we also look at some of those meter zones as a reduced permit rate? As a third option to consider. Compared to lots or some of the other rates, so that those,
We could.
Yeah, we could. I mean, this is part of the reason that the parking advisory committee was formed, is to have these discussions.
so I'm
We're
just
gonna bring you
put that
what,
in your mind.
we're gonna bring you what we think.
Okay.
Is going to be, the kicker is you're gonna get the comments that people are parking there all day long. And there's spots that aren't opening up. Because we do have some that are very close to the core that are currently meter parking. So we want to be cognizant of our core and making sure that we have turnover so that the businesses have park versus people just parking there 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that now, you can pay for 8 hours, but most people don't. So.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on then to our next exciting topic, residential parking districts. Do we have a map for this one?
We don't.
Oh, don't.
The map, so they're scattered across all of them.
Okay.
And we don't.
So are you presenting this, David, or is he presenting?
I'll let him talk.
Okay.
We're working on the map. It's something we have to do for the new zone. The map is kind of in progress. We had a map, but it was pretty outdated. There was a lot of them missing. So we didn't want to, again, just show another outdated map, so.
Can you give us a quick history? How did those places get picked? I mean, it sounds like the map is,
So residential parking is done by commission action. A block, a what have you, petitions, both not only their petitions the neighbors for. So if your block that you live on wants to have residential parking, then you have to go and get over 50% of the signatures saying, yes, I want it, for the application to go before the commission. And the requirements for, the biggest requirement for residential parking is there is something new that has happened in the area that has caused impact parking. I will tell you, a lot of the older residential parking didn't comply with one aspect or the other of the city code. But so long story short, your group can come petition, bring it forward to the city commission. It gets presented to the commission. This neighborhood X with 16 properties, 15 of the properties signed on that they want to have a residential parking district. And that goes before the commission. They have to be residential. The commercial side doesn't count. So they don't get a say because it's residential. It's supposed to help impacts to, the residents. We haven't done one in a long time. The last time we did an action with residential parking was back in 14 or 15, where we had, I don't remember how many residential parking districts, but over half of them weren't even buying a permit. So it was brought up to the city commission. Letters were sent out. If you want your district, blah, 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 blah. About half of them didn't respond or said they didn't want them anymore. And they went away. There's still some that are out there, and there's going to be some that receive a letter this year saying, not enough permits are being sold in your residential parking district. It's in danger of being eliminated. The history that I know about residential parking districts, I think, stems from when Blue Cross Blue Shield and a lot of federal offices were in downtown proper, like between Neal and Broadway, especially Blue Cross Blue Shield, where all their buildings were right there at basically the Civic Center intersection. And as you can see driving by, there's not enough parking for that big building. So staff would park in the residential area. And so a lot of those residential parking districts were created around there to prevent people that work there, to prevent from blocking people's driveways and parking areas. There are still some remnants of that still there that we're working on getting rid of if the neighborhood wants. But I think that's where a lot of it stemmed from, is just the impact of businesses. Not that in a negative impact to the neighborhoods versus in a commercial district. So that's the way. They can be repealed fairly easily. The fees, to be perfectly honest, are $30 a year. They don't even cover our costs for enforcement. Out there. Uh,
This is true. Last year, they did double, you know, like the, when you have a car, you know, the little, you have to do the gas. They went from 5 to 10 and the stickers doubled that.
They went from 20 to 50.
Okay, but they went up and, you know,
Right.
so I see why you wouldn't make much money.
Yeah, I mean, most areas that have these type of permits are far, far greater fees. That we charge for yearly that they're charging monthly. For this. But that's what was put into place, and that's what we're still, working on. So.
And you expand on enforcement, does the park, you guys have an acronym for your enforcement officers,
PCO.
PCO, do they enforce these zones at all, or is it primary law enforcement?
No, it's the PCOs.
It's the
primarily.
Okay, and are you saying that they don't have time to do it, or not?
No, it's not that they don't have time to do it. It's, if you think about it just from a, cost standpoint. So there's, on average, maybe 5 to 7 members of a residential district. So we're collecting $150 a year to enforce those districts. The average PCO makes in between $20 to $25 an hour. So, by the time they've spent 5 or 6 hours worth of enforcement, that's already taken up all the revenue we've got from that whole district for the entire year. And it takes them usually they use the vehicle, so it doesn't take them long to get out to those districts. But, if they spend just an hour or 2 in one day driving to all of the districts that we have, well, that's an hour or 2 every day, 5 days a week, so this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, I think these districts were thought up and created more as of a deterrent than they are really as an enforcement tool. That's why they were low cost to begin with. It's more about the average person is usually good. And if they see a sign that says this is a resident parking only, and if you don't have a permit, you shouldn't park here, 99% of people are going to respect that and not park there. So it's a deterrent, low cost option to help the residents not be kicked out of, parking near their homes by business, either customers or employees. But it doesn't lend a lot for us to really enforce it very much. And I think that was the idea. It was more of a deterrent than it was strict enforcement.
Well, this is Joan. Of course, I probably have opinions about this. It's to me, it makes absolutely no sense to have it because it doesn't really deter where I live anyway. It doesn't deter anybody from parking there. They pull up unless I go out and say, this is residential parking and you could possibly get a $25 fine, and they'll go, they'll say something like, well, we don't care. Or they'll say, oh, sorry, move. So the whole thing just seems to be, and it's not enforced. I mean, even if like on a day with the civic center full and having whatever, there was a time where they came by once, gave some people a ticket, but then those people would leave and the next group would come in. And so the whole day it's full. So I guess, and maybe my neighborhood, the block I live on, there are more people who, because of the civic center is so close, that they're impacted by it. So I don't know if they'd want to keep it or not. But to me, if it's not enforced and we pay the minimal amount and people park there anyway, I don't see And, you know, you said last time, the enforcement is from 8 to 5 weekdays. So I mean, I think it needs a good look at what makes sense and what doesn't.
So, you know, they're not just enforcing those residential areas, they're doing their rounds to private lot enforcement that we
Right,
have and
right.
everything else, so they're not constantly driving up and down checking these residential areas, so you're right. People could get ticketed, they could leave and people could come in and park there, and they may get back in time to ticket them or not. Or people just park there and the ticket stays there because it's not a tow away zone. So even if there was, you know, I don't know, maybe that's the fix is that they're just a tow away zone. I don't want to do that, but you
No,
know,
I wouldn't. want to either.
there's not a lot of consequence that if you park there, you just get a ticket and you just leave it on your car.
Right.
And so I agree with you in some respects that they aren't as much of a deterrent as maybe originally intended. But there's areas in town, the Civic Center for one, which is a unique location because there isn't the original intent was mostly for 8 to 5 workers coming into downtown and trying to park in front of people's houses. The Civic Center doesn't operate Monday through Friday 8 to 5. So it is kind of a unique situation that I don't know what the best route to do to, you know, help mitigate that.
Yeah, I understand, and I think people who live downtown or near downtown understand that they live, downtown, they're gonna have people parking around there. And so I just felt like, oh, I got this residential parking. So I was getting false hope that maybe that would be enforced and people wouldn't park there. So, you know,
I think we.
I don't know what to do, but
I think we agree
it's
with
not
you
working,
on
you
that.
know?
I think we agree with you and we recognize that the hours that we are able to enforce them right now are not the hours that you need them enforced even really, right?
Right,
At the Civic Center.
around the Civic Center.
But if you're up
neighborhood.
on Warren.
Yeah.
Or even in any of them.
If you're on
So
Warren.
there's a district by the middle
Right.
school, right?
Yes,
So football games on, you know, Friday nights is a big issue in that one.
right,
And that's why, I assume that's why they have a district is because of that. You know, and obviously we're not enforcing on Friday night, so does it really help? So I think we acknowledge that it's probably not the best solution to that problem. But for lack of a better option, both on the staff side to be able to have someone working those hours. And then, you know, what type of a solution then should they enforce in there? I think is what we have to figure out.
So PD, if they're going through there, will enforce the residential zones.
right, I know we. The
they have
people
a
who get
special-
Tickets are my family who forget to put the parking pass in, or someone who's doing work in our yard, and we forget to give them the parking pass. Those are the people who get tickets. So, anyway,
There is an enforcement during the day.
So if the police department enforces it, where does that revenue go?
The ticket, so it's a weird little ticket that comes to parking, and then we have to enter it into our system.
Okay, so parking does get the revenue
It
if
does, yeah.
the police department
If they
enforces
take
it.
it, but I can't tell you how many tickets they've written in the past year, but
And it's not always very easy to keep track of those ones either, because a lot of times they don't come with a plate number or a VIN number or any of that, because they're just handwritten tickets, so they kind of just, you know, they write them and
They place them, they give
they
you a copy.
move on.
and they're mostly looking for safety violations.
This is Sandy. So how does the group go about contacting or getting information from the people, the residents? Sounds like to me like someone needs to talk to the residents, find out what works for them or doesn't work, see what the pros and cons are, and then bring that information back. Cause you know, Civic Center versus Brown Block versus, you know, Park Avenue. Everyone has different issues. So how do you propose that you get their information, their input? As Joan just says, you know, most tickets have been to my family and my relatives who forgot to pass, which they've already paid for.
I heard Joan volunteer to organize all the residential.
Well, I like the idea that you are sending out a notice to them all and it gives an opportunity for them to think about it. Is it working?
So before we send out that notice, we could also send a, you know, tell them that we can create a survey on like the Be Heard Helena page and have them chime in. Not necessarily, because I know people's privacy is a concern sometimes, but they would have to chime in like, we're the 200 block of Hauser, you know, I'm in that district. So that we could see, is there a pattern in certain areas of town? And how do we address that? Or, you know, maybe it's just not worth it anymore. Or, you know, whatever the solutions, you know, come up are, and then we can bring that kind of survey data back to this one. We wouldn't make it for the December meeting. It would probably be the January meeting.
It'd be
that we
better
would
anyway in
survey.
January when people are not thinking holidays and people and.
Yeah, we can, yeah, surveys or.
Well, if the garages are easier to use, in theory, like down by the Civic Center. And they're, you know,
So that's kind of the funny thing is the garages are open
I don't know.
on the weekends for everybody to park in, free of charge, no enforcement, but they are humans. They want the closest spot to the front door unless, of course, they have a brand new car and then they'll park way out in the movies
That's
so that
Joan's
nobody
house.
scratches their car.
You know, that it does look like when they have the fairs or, you know, the vintage whatever's over there, people do use the parking structure, but it might be just the top level. I
Yeah,
don't know if they go down any further.
yeah, we encourage the Civic Center to
Mhm.
encourage their, you know, event. Whatever attenders to park in the structure, right, because it's really not that far. You know, like David said, most people want to park right up front, but it's really not that far. And I have noticed that too. Most of them, if they do opt to use the garage, are just sticking to that top level.
Mhm.
You know, they're compromising in their own mind. Okay, I parked farther away, but I don't also want to walk up a ramp to get there too.
Mhm.
So they just try to stick to the top.
Well, I would bet good money, like it doesn't show that half the people in the parking lot attached to the Civic Center are the vendors themselves. And they leave that so their customers can't get there versus saying all vendors need to move to the garage. Even though they might say that, but I bet you that's a good chunk of it, so. It's people.
A lot of the vendors will come, you know, with trailers. So they can't.
And they're parked along the 2-hour parking.
Right, they can't park.
Because it's not enforced.
Right, they can't park in the garage because of the trailers, so.
Well, it was good for you to tell me about the football games and how that impacts those neighborhoods too. So.
But you don't oversee that. That was just them who made their own little district,
No, there's an official district there on,
but that you guys oversee.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't
The
remember.
Capitol must have the same issue.
Like Bozeman Ave.
It's one of those, yeah, it's
Village,
on
maybe?
the eastern side of the stadium of the school.
Yeah.
On one of those
Going that
streets
little
there,
corner.
yeah.
So does this Capitol also have a district like that? On the
Capitol?
Yeah, around the Capitol, no, it's,
Capitol High School, I don't think.
no, not Capitol High School, but Capitol, the Capitol.
Oh.
No. No one's having issues with residential there.
Not really, since the capital. It's- They're-
I'm just curious. Because I would assume if you send out a survey to be heard, that you'd also include all of those districts. you know.
There's 18 districts that we have.
I would encourage you to do all of them, not just.
Yeah, we would survey.
So can we talk process on that? If we want to do a Be Heard Helena survey, is that something, there have to be a a reason to do the survey? It's like these are changing, or can you guys do those surveys?
No, we
at
could
any
do a
time?
survey just because.
So could we, in our summer meetings, follow up on this and maybe look at the questions that you're gonna ask for the survey, and if you go up in January, be open for a while? Just trying to
So then
process
we
the
wouldn't,
time.
we wouldn't have any information to bring you until February.
Depending on how long you want us to give people to reply.
Okay, so you could open a survey in December and then have some responses by January.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a long simmering issue, the residential permits.
I think people are busy in December and doing a survey might not be.
But yeah, if you
useful.
did it in January, maybe we got it. in February. Like you said. it's
I mean,
gonna
we
go on
could-
for a long
We
time.
could put it out still
Yeah,
and then leave it up for a little longer period of time. It's just.
Because
kinda-
December also bring up those irritating issues of the Nutcracker and the craft shows and so all that needs to be there.
You know, I don't think the residential zones are gonna go away, but I do think they're changing. I mean, I used to work in that Burlington building, and yeah, when that Blue Cross building was full. I mean, there just wasn't enough parking and they were forced into the neighborhoods. Well, now that building is not as full and you've got, teleworkers. So that may be a zone that would possibly go away. I'm talking about west of the old Blue Cross building. But I think they're gonna change, but I just don't see them going away. I mean, I think it's gonna just depend on the density of certain neighborhoods. I don't know if there's any districts down by Carroll College, but I can imagine that would be a place. Possibly. I know where I live, around the Capitol.
Yeah.
I have a garage, as does everybody else in that fifties neighborhood, so we don't care. You know, it's a fifties neighborhood and everybody has a,
Be interesting to see what the survey brings up.
yeah.
Well, we'll get some questions. We'll get them to you prior to December's meeting, and then we can finalize the questions at December's meeting.
Alright, I'm gonna wrap us up on residential parking districts.
Do we need to be doing any public opinion between the comments?
Yes, we haven't voted on anything,
Okay.
but I want to just make sure, Christopher, did you have any comments on residential parking? Okay, great. Okay, so then I'm gonna take a pause here because the annual report part, I wanna talk in a little more detail, and I'm gonna move public comment up or add a public comment piece now, since you guys have been waiting so patiently. So it's 5:04. I'm gonna open us up for any public comment. Definitely not looking forward to it.
I'm Guy Hader, been at the Great Northern Town Center. We've got 14 paid parking permits for the Getchell Garage. And our business it's an older clientele. We have a dermatology practice. A lot of 75 and older clients that have a difficult time finding surface parking or street side parking. And they're actually in our business for hours. They can be there up to 4 or 5 hours and they have a surgery. So our concern is in the garage itself. There's a very the handicap parking are kind of in the middle of the garage. And I talked to Lonnie Carmen about moving some of those handicap slots closer to access for our building. I don't know if that's feasible. That's something we greatly appreciate for our clients. And then just street side and surface parking is, I don't think it's enforced very well. And just like to get your feedback on enforcement, when that's good, the timeline for enforcement is with the passport system and how that's being for our older clientele and people that will have a very easy time of getting the passport app on their phones, etc.
So the street side parking will be enforced by timed parking, because that's mostly time parking on Great Northern. It's 2 hour.
Those 2 hour slots.
So those will be chopped electronically as the vehicle goes by. And as the vehicle makes its rounds again, if the vehicle hasn't moved and it's over the 2-hour parking, then it'll get a ticket. Can never remember the street that goes down to the movie theater. That one's gonna be a little bit more challenging because there's some 15-minute, there's some hour parking, there's 2-hour parking all mixed together. So we might have to work with the HOA down there to, kind of look at the parking a little bit differently. And so, just so everybody's aware on the committee and the public, parking downtown in the Great Northern is not actually right away. It's private property by the Great Northern. And they set whatever signs up, that's their signs. That's not the city signs. So if they put up a 1.5-hour parking free, then that's what it is. And we have an agreement with them to enforce it, but we don't really we have some leverage to discuss things, but how that is laid out or whatever, that's mostly on the Great Northern. But as we move closer to this new LPR system, we will be having conversations with them concerning those pieces and parts that are kind of intermingled together. The Getchell parking, we'd have to look because as far as the handicap, we have to have a handicap entrance. We have to have a access route that is ADA compliant. And I don't know if we have something closer to your businesses that
There's only one ADA compliant spot out on the street that I know of.
again, we don't designate those on the street because that's private. Inside the garage is ours, that we could look at moving some down, down closer to 14th there. But as far as the on-street stuff, that would have to be a discussion with the Great Northern. But we'll definitely look at that because it is in the middle of the building. That's where it was deemed the best back when the garage was built. Times change, clientele changes. So sometimes what was done 10, 15 years ago doesn't work, at the present. So we can definitely take a look.
Yeah, cam rig. My wife bought she started a physical therapy clinic in the New York building in the back there. It's kind of part of the Core Collective. If you know what the Core Collective is, it's similar businesses that have the same type of clientele, but they're not really all part of it. They're just in it. But anyway, when we looked at that location, it has the ped tunnel hooked to the parking garage up top. And her office is up on that top floor right there. It's perfect for her clients. The 1-hour parking was very beneficial and attractive to her clients because most appointments are 45 minutes to an hour. So they got to park free. So the parking garage, like that location that had the free 1-hour parking, was attractive for that and made it easy for those people. And I know there's other businesses in there that 1 hour would be good for, but I'm just trying to talk to her about her deal. I'm kind of curious why the 1 hour. And I talked to Dave earlier in the week. I kind of missed some of the public comment and all that stuff, but so did she. But we're curious about that. It's we don't have a problem with the kiosk being in there and that change, other than the location of it. It's all the way. There's only 2 of them, and the one up on the top is all the way across, kind of by the stairwell by Park Avenue, which is completely all the way across from where the entrance of the ped tunnel is. And you think about her clientele can range from a young kid to a 95-year-old person coming into there, plus your hip replacements, your knee replacements, your whatever, that walking across a parking garage to get in that, and there are also some people that don't, and I think you mentioned it earlier, are not really savvy with apps and don't like to do it. And that stuff, but it's not real convenient, mostly in the winter. So we're kind of curious about maybe a new location for that. She really would like the 1 hour parking or some kind of thing. She doesn't, right now, she is, for most of her people, a lot of them, she plugs in their license plate and will pay for it. Just because it's such a hassle for a lot of them. And she really doesn't want them to walk all the way across, you know, to go punch in their number and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's some things that I guess as business owners, it would be nice to be able to, like, I mean, this committee is great to negotiate some areas. I kind of like in your discussions earlier, you talked about getting rid of the 50. I totally agree with you. I do. For the reason of, I think 15 minutes is nothing other than 25 cents. And if that means a lot to you to save 25 cents, I'd rather see you charge 75 cents the first hour and not them know it. And then after that, it goes up, you know, or, I mean, there's a lot of other options out there than thinking that that is attractive. But I also see, and I talk to a lot of business owners down there that I go into their stores and stuff. And I've been asking questions since this all started to them, you know, because they've been there longer than us. Some of them been there 15, 20 years, 25 years. And they've been through the gauntlet of, like you talk about the 2 hour parking and people park there all day, then they move their cars. And kind of what I'm getting out of people, they like the free first hour was the best thing. It was too big of a hassle for those people that like to go down there and move their car. You know, the 2 hour, it seemed like it was okay, but the 1 hour, they didn't see it as much. They thought the foot traffic in their businesses was better with the 1 hour. I don't think it has to be everywhere. You know, and then also there was the option of, you know, I don't know your pay stuff off the top of my head, but I mean, I told Dave, you know, they would be okay with a premium cost after that. I know some of the areas downtown, it's a higher cost, isn't it, to park in different areas? I thought it was.
No, it's.
Well, no,
Used to
meters
be.
on the meters, it
Used to
was. Used to be, no.
The garages are more expensive than the lots than.
For permit.
Yeah.
For permit.
Yeah,
But your regular hourly parking has been the same across. the board.
but I don't know if that's some, you know, in those areas, like you said, okay, the first hour is free, but after that hour, it's gonna be $1.50 an hour. To try to make up for your costs of your employees and the service. But that 1 hour, going back to your point, would be, wow, that's a good deal. I'm gonna go down now and go to the hassle of going to the app and or going to the kiosk and punching it in. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but that's the feedback I've gotten from the businesses when I started asking questions. But I guess back to my comment of what we need up there is we would really like that 1 hour back or something to it, you know, plus the change of, I guess, the location of a kiosk. And I know you don't, I don't know why the ones over there. I kind of understand at a park. A lot of those people maybe that park in there go to the building across the street. So, but there's also a lot of people that go downstairs through the New York building for access to even other businesses.
So Chris, where are those kiosks in Sixth Street Garage?
On the bottom of the stairwell, directly below basically the pet bridge. On the first floor, so that people who took the elevator down, you could use the kiosk as you went out, and then the other one is at the park stairwell entrance on the west side of Sixth.
And now that we don't have the arm and the ticket anymore, could you put a kiosk there, and could you get that? But we couldn't operate it from a car, could you?
No, that's why we put them
No.
at exits, because it does take, you know, it's longer than just getting your ticket spit out at you, like
So exit if you go down to the ground, but not across the bridge or not across the top.
So there's a couple things on my.
Yeah, so I wanna remind the group for our public meetings, public comment is the time for the public to comment. And not a brainstorming session for the board, so, or for the committee. But we're also a small group and we're not over time yet, so I'm gonna allow a little discussion.
So one of the things that I want to bring up for you, Cam, and hearing that your wife is already putting their license plates in.
Gonna steal my thunder.
Yes.
Go ahead,
I was
finish your
quicker
thought.
and I'm director. No, so we have Goldies that were offered, previously at a discounted rate. So when we go to this new system, the Goldie coins are going away because to be honest, they're just too much of a hassle. Because you have to buy a $16,000 coin separator to separate the Goldies from quarters. Or you have somebody standing there separating them out by hand, and that's just not efficient. So the new passport system will have an electronic Goldie. So as a business owner, you can go in and buy electronic Goldies and give that, that code. It's going to be a discount code to your clients, or if somebody's there to enter the plates, they can enter it under that, and that then gives those parking privileges at a discounted price, just like the Goldies. But the
When is
hand
that gonna
sorting
be
is just,
available?
what's that?
When will that be available?
Around the first of the year.
Okay.
The hand sorting of the Goldies just got to be too much, and then
So if I was a business and I was like 22 and you have a customer who's gonna stay longer, they could actually just tell their customers, don't go by the kiosk, we're buying your parking, just come in and tell us your plate.
Yeah, because
You
we
would-
use the validation sticker tickets.
And so they can just punch those in on
there's no time limit on Goldies.
what?
There's no time limit on Goldies, so if it's gonna be an hour procedure or a 4-hour procedure, then you just type it in 4-hour, 4 Goldies or 1 Goldie or whatever. And that would cover the time.
So what would it cost? I mean, do you have an idea of what the discount or the gold, I guess?
So
Is there gonna be a-
do you remember what?
They're
the
eight, you get $8 worth of quarters for $6.
Yeah, we used to buy them when I owned a restaurant that Pita Pit, and we would hand them out all the time to customers came in and say, I don't have any quarters for
Next
parking,
time.
and we paid for their parking, just anybody's using our business. But I will add one thing to this conversation, and that is, as it stands now, the parking fee has been reduced. I don't know what it was on, you had an hour free on the garage.
Yeah.
It's been reduced to $1 an hour, which I think is, pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the
But
issue for you is this location.
Yeah,
They have to go all the way down to come back up to
It's
go to
the
the,
passport app itself, to put that on your phone, and half of our clients don't know their license plate number.
Yeah.
well, that's true. I mean, that,
that's a new form
There
of
will
check-in.
be an actual online portal with the new software too. So even if you can't use the app or you're just not, a smartphone person,
Mhm.
you guys could even have, once they get into the office, on a regular
Yeah.
computer, there'll be a portal you can
Okay.
go to buy parking as well, so.
Yeah, the whole idea with the new software is, not that everybody's in the electronics age, but there's gonna be able to pay for your permits online, pay for your tickets online, manage your permits. So if a business were to buy 20 permits for their employees or whatever, they can manage those. And then there's one less step of them having to call us to change the plates or whatever. People can manage their permits however they want. There's a lot more, I guess, electronic access to this, and we're hoping that hopefully it's something that everybody has said what they wanted, so we're hoping that it fulfills those. We understand that there is a section of our clients that aren't as technological savvy, but we'll try to work through the company that we're using is across the nation, so they've seen a lot of this, and so if it comes up that something's just not working, we can ask them and say, hey, this isn't working, we need something for you know, X, Y, and Z and see what they, you know, what they could propose that might be a easier fix for those who are having.
So, correct me, so one Goldie is unlimited or not? It's an hour.
No,
It's in the
Counts as a quarter.
Yeah.
So what is, we would give them, you would put the quarter machine in, those quarter machines are going away anyway. And the fact that,
there's an electronic.
yeah, there's electronic goalie.
But
So if they're staying for an hour, they'd have to buy 4 goldies. Are they, I'm sure the goldies would then be 3, that's right, first. I mean, I'm sure it would be, the goldie would be the first, you know,
But I like the idea of, in your wife's situation, to have it on a PC. And when the person came in, you could just fill it out on a PC. It seemed to me that would be pretty quick.
yeah, the issue is, will there people know that
The
With
license
ice
plate
cream.
number is gonna be different.
Well, they would, I think they would figure it out.
Julia?
Yep.
This is Christopher. I'm just checking the time. While I appreciate the, I just want to keep us on track if we can with public comments.
Yeah, so thanks, Christopher. Any other public comment during our public comment period?
I do have one more.
Okay,
It's more of a question.
but we can't, we're not actually supposed to answer
No.
comment. So if you have an additional statement for your comment, but just no public comment, we should have been brainstorming. But go ahead and ask your question and maybe these two will answer in the hallway.
It's the amount of permitted parking spots in that garage.
Okay, that's a longer question that transportation can answer. Okay,
I do give you.
Yeah.
great. Thank you for being here for public comment. All right, going back to our agenda, we're at our annual report recommendations. So this is going to be a standing item on our agendas, and it's how the goal is to get us as a committee organized to make recommendations to the city commission. So we're gonna talk about these every month and refine them. We're not gonna vote on any of them right now, but I just wanna talk about what you would like to see as a recommendation moving forward. So this, I'm calling for draft recommendations, comments, or just something that we can keep checking in on this during our monthly meetings.
I don't know if this is the spot for it, but we heard today that you took a document to city commission for approval. We had not seen it. We have a piece here from Imagine Design. So is there a way that we can get information to the committee before the meetings, or
So, yes, some of those documents.
obviously
were-
that could be the annual thing, it's like, we wanna make sure that, I don't know.
So the presentation that Chris was talking about, I already sent to everybody.
But then you did that tonight,
Yes,
yeah, so I'm just wondering if part of our,
so
if we're looking at a process, can we get that?
none of the things that we brought forward they were operational.
Okay,
Versus
I'm at the wrong spot, so Julia's over here.
Okay, rephrase your question, Sandy.
Well, we're sitting in this meeting and we hear that there was a presentation at the county city commissioners that none of us knew about, right?
So your question is about how do we,
How do we get information to us?
how is information about parking shared?
Right,
I think is the bigger question.
yeah, exactly, it's like,
So
someone,
maybe
I Imagine Design approached me and said, hey, can I give this to you? And I'm like, I don't think I can accept anything. I need to know how that system works.
So the presentation that we gave you on the 10th was pretty much the presentation we gave the commission
So
on the 16th.
the only thing that was really different about my presentation to them, which was just a couple days after our presentation to you, was that I had time to do some of those number analysis that I just shared here. So that those numbers were in that presentation. That was really mostly the only difference between.
Well, maybe it's just noting to Julia that the presentation is going to happen. It's not,
Okay, so again, I don't wanna brainstorm right now, but I think you're bringing up that there's a issue about how and when parking information is shared. So I'm just gonna make a
Yeah,
note about
yeah.
information. Okay. Other things that we might include in our annual report recommendations.
Well, I think the one thing that was discussed today was the recommendations that would come out of the residential parking zones.
And that would be, there would be a survey. There would be changes to the residential parking zone based on results of the survey. That's-
So,
That seems like an easy,
yeah. Joan, anything you can think about?
Not yet. I'm not sure what qualifies as a recommendation.
We're all still kind of figuring it
Oh,
out, so I just wanna,
All right, I'll keep it. moving.
okay. Christopher, do you have anything for this piece?
Yeah, real quick, I guess it was just to circle back to the gentleman's concern. Maybe we need to look at that Sixth Avenue garage again for that kiosk. I don't know if that's something we could just revise. Any areas that we that was once, I guess, with a gated arm that are now gone, just to reevaluate if we need additional kiosks anywhere else would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Mine would be one about, I gotta think about how to word it, but the users of parking and the values of parking and how we will balance those in future decision making. And maybe better defining who our parking users are, the type of users, and the type of parking available based on the type of users. So I know that's a little repetitive, but work on
Oh,
it.
and also real quick, Julia, I also wonder if the tourism board, I don't know if it's the Helena Tourism, if they have data or statistics. I know that they track people that come visit. I don't know if any of that is beneficial for us to look at. So I just wanted to make a note of that as well. Thank you.
Valley has that.
and what is that thing called? I forget the name every time we talk about it.
She can track visitors coming
Yeah,
in.
it essentially uses a GPS signal.
Yep.
And you can get, where did they start from? Where did they end? Where did
Zarco.
they travel through?
Zarticle and Placer, I think, are two sites that they use to track that.
It's getting scary.
I know.
Um, okay,
You'll be amazed at how much information they have.
Yeah.
all right,
sure.
so then for things that we'll discuss, and this could be something maybe if, we can do two things. We can make an annual report to the city commission, and we can also make annual report with recommendations, or we can also make interim recommendations on things that we need. So we've talked about how information is shared, that maybe there's a need for some better information sharing, and public comment, or where the public can find it. Residential zones and opening a survey for that, Sixth Avenue garage, and maybe in general in this change to the all kiosk system, if there needs to be a look at additional kiosks, and then mine users versus types of parking and the values, and then tourism. That's more a future agenda item, which kind of leads me to my next thing. I'd like to, as we did today, we had residential parking as one of like our big new topic. If we want to try to tackle one a month, and if we want to quick brainstorm what those big topics would be for the next couple months to give staff a heads up on that. Tourism would be a great one, especially as we go towards the museum, and maybe we can invite some of the partners on tourism, Andrea and maybe Callie, and how parking can support tourism. Permit, employee
Parking. we have to
Employee
address that.
parking.
That's probably the next big one.
Alright, I'm just gonna make notes here, and then maybe we can decide that. So employee parking, tourism. Capital complex, I know you don't really have any jurisdiction over that right now, but as future, something that could be part of our transportation plan and parking. Maybe I'm overreaching,
They enforce their own parking.
they enforce their own parking, okay.
HPD officer that's up there, writes the tickets on that.
Are there other areas like that around town?
The only one lately that I've had our staff go down to because I've noticed a lot of safety violations is along Benton at Carroll College. A lot of vehicles parking in the yellow zones, blocking the sight distance for people. So I have had them go down and enforce that as far as the safety violation, but as far as being a part of the parking.
So maybe it's a conversation about enforcement jurisdictions.
So right now, this enforcement jurisdiction is the city of
So the PCOs could technically go anywhere within the city
Mhm.
to enforce safety violations.
Okay, you don't have to tell me now.
Yeah.
Is that worth a whole meeting is the question I'm trying to ask.
How about we
Maybe.
give you an overview on enforcement?
Okay, overview on enforcement, that would be a whole, or that would be a media item.
And adding on to enforcement is tickets and recovering them. I mean,
Yeah.
what
I
are,
mean,
what are
that
the,
is
what are the ticket values, you know, for fines?
full fine schedule.
Yeah, fine schedule. I read in the newspaper, whether it's right or not, that we're gonna charge visitors more for,
I think
Eh.
that was a misreading. It's they will be charged more based on where the violation occurs. So if you park in the parking garage, it's a higher fee than if you violate a time limit on the street.
okay,
Not where the vehicle is registered.
okay, so that's how I read it to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, in general, we also know that 40% of the tickets aren't paid. So what can we do to make that work? And that might just be software.
Okay,
We
don't
have- yeah.
problem solve. Other topics from, sorry, well, I'm just trying to be respectful of time. Any other topics you guys would like to see as a monthly agenda? Christopher, did you have any other topics?
No, that was it. Thank you.
So, okay, so then next month, let's talk about employee parking next month. So that ties into, the meters. So when we have a new regular item, if staff can be ready to talk, give us that. Some of it will be repetitive from our first meeting when you were talking about permit holders. But what the current option is for employee parking, which is I think permit holders, and then we can brainstorm or dive in deeper.
That's a good topic.
Okay.
That's one that's.
We'll bring maps next time.
Maps. We like maps. I like maps.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Okay. December agenda.
Well,
So
and with the
our-
employee parking, excuse me, make sure that we have the permit information too.
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean,
have that.
what are we using
Yeah.
now and what's available and what is our need?
So the sorry. The
I don't even know the answer.
the PDF that I just sent you will give you a brief overview
Okay.
of that.
Great. We'll resend
Um,
Okay.
and the other two items that you brought up,
Mhm.
I don't know what the.
Oh, yeah, so
committee
we're still
feels
on this
like, but
piece.
that could, I think could get both knocked out in January.
Okay, well, we'll decide in December, unless we wanna map these out.
I wanna get-
Tourism, let's move tourism to February, because I think we can then get the tourism group could be involved, and if they knew, and so let's talk about fees and enforcement in January.
Right, and that's the fee structure also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that work? Everyone follow that? Okay, so our next meeting is, December 12th at 4 PM. And I assume it's still in this room?
Yes.
Okay, in room 309. So we will have some follow-up from things today and then our new agenda item. We do a final call for any other additional public comment before we adjourn. Oh, did you have public comment?
So, I just have one of the comments reminded me, we were talking earlier about the numbers and the cost to the 15-minute free versus an hour. And that kind of thing. So, one of the numbers that I looked at when we were doing that was how many first hour free sessions were there in compared to total sessions in those places that have the first hour free. And in places like 6th Avenue Garage, where there gets a lot more than it does. There was about 17,000 total transactions, and almost 11,000 of them were first hour free.
So this is Sixth Avenue, repeat those numbers, 17,000 total.
17,000 total. About 11,000 of those were first hour free, meaning no payment at all.
Wow. Was
Um,
that a month or a year?
That was for a year.
Okay.
And so it ties in a little bit to the idea of premium where, you know, first hour free and then the next hour is $1.50 or $2 or whatever it is. If we went to a philosophy like that, you're looking at, you know, 60 to 70% of our business is now gone in the first hour. If we went that way. That was a thought process that went into that whole concept.
Yeah,
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we are gonna adjourn at, oh, any second? I don't know if I need a second for that. No, you're nodding. We are gonna adjourn at 5:36 if all are in favor. All right, great. Sorry, we're learning process. Thanks
Keeping
Christopher
up
for
with
joining us.
Thank you.